Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining on time or a few minutes early. We're just going to give people 2 more minutes. So we'll kick the show off at 11:02.
We should play the Jeopardy music while we're waiting.
I know. The intro music is much better than the silence, but
That's a good idea. Just a reminder, everyone's mics will be muted.
So they can all bomb our meeting, but they'll just end up learning something. They won't be able to talk. It's fine.
no harbor bombing.
Thanks for the thumbs up.
Oh, we like that.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Kristen Koenig. I'm going to kick this off for us. Before we get started, can everyone locate the smiley face at the top of your screen and send us an emoticon so we know that you can hear or see us? We'll see it float across the bottom of the screen. There we go. Yes, guys, I love it. Awesome. Look at them all. Great, great. Thank you, everyone. Also, at the top of your screen, you're going to see a question mark in a box. Use this to send us questions throughout the presentation. We'll review them at the end. And following the presentation, we're also going to have a URL to a survey. We'd appreciate your feedback on that for our upcoming series. Also, throughout the discussion, we're going to pause to run a couple polls. And before I kick this off and introduce our presenters, I just want to start with a poll right now, if you guys don't mind. Let's see. Here we go. So if you guys wouldn't mind just shooting us your answer, and we'll see what everyone's doing here today. See these numbers coming in.
Oh, there's a couple of boss maybes.
Someone's
All
boss.
right.
Wow.
That's okay. We'll make it worth your while.
Sure. Okay, looks like we're good. We appreciate you guys participating. Feel free to send an emoticon throughout the presentation. Let us know you're there. Let us know you like something, you don't like something, and we'll talk about it at the end. So again, thank you for your participation. I would now like to introduce Jeremy Vignaux, which I took a while to understand how to pronounce that. He's the Vice President of Technology here at Harbor Networks, and John Flory, who is the CISO here at Harbor Networks.
Thank you, Kristen, very much. Great start. Great job. I want to thank everybody for joining our webinar. We're extremely excited to be presenting this to you and about our practice. So, Jeremy, I just want you to say hi, maybe introduce yourself, and talk about your role.
Yeah, good morning. So my name is Jeremy Vignaux. I've been the VP of Technology at Harbor Networks for almost 17 years now. Excited to help our customers and our prospects and everyone we know and consult with, introduce them to technologies that make a difference to their organization. We've obviously done a lot with infrastructure and telecommunications, and now, doing some work with security and compliance and things like that. So, we try to be consultative. I tried to demystify acronyms. I'm sort of an acronym axer, so to speak, and try to explain things and make them useful, and not just try to berate people with information that's too hard to understand.
Awesome. Excellent. Okay, so let's get us kicked off. I'm going to start with pulling up the agenda page. We're going to talk a little bit about these 6 items today, and this is a series. So this is the first webinar kicking off a series, and you're going to get plenty of information on what we have coming up. So we're going to talk about our approach. What are we doing? What's our approach to it? How are we doing it? What are our beliefs? Then we're going to look a little bit about the current cybersecurity landscape. And I called it a practical view. It's really what we're seeing right now within our communities. What's going on? What are the latest attacks? Well, how are people being affected? What are the outcomes of these attacks? We're going to talk about some trending risks. My favorite slide, would be the next slide that we're going to talk about. It's a Jeremy slide, and we call it forcing around. So that is something that I'm absolutely looking forward to. And then I'm not going to talk about how to defend against cyber criminals. We're going to play offense. So we're going to take out our offensive playbook today. And that's what we're going to go over. And we're going to talk about some of our offerings. What are the offerings? What does it look like? We're going to talk about our security programs. So definitely submit questions. Kristen is manning it. And if we don't get to it for any reason, we're going to try to get to every question. This is about you. We'll get back to you with the questions. So definitely shoot us the questions today. Okay. So I love this first block. CPPT. It's something that I've been excited to share with everyone. And it's not California privacy law, and it's not some Cisco specialization.
How about personal protection equipment? Is it some cousin to PPE that all we've heard about?
Yeah. Jeremy, no, it is not.
All right.
So really what it does is it takes a best practice in security, something that I've been preaching on for, I don't want to date myself, but about 30 years. It takes the people, process, technology, and it puts culture in front of it. So CPPT is culture, people, process, technology. And it's really the wrapping around your whole security posturing. So that's what we're going to talk about. How are we going to build a culture together? How do we get people to care? One thing we're noticing is there's attacks going on. I'm involved in them every day at this point within our community. And a lot of these attacks are simply from people. And whether they don't care or whether they do care and they're doing it maliciously, etc. And we're going to talk about that. And with Harbor, like we've always done, we're going to continue with the same philosophy. We're an extension of your team. So we work with your team for outcomes. And we're going to talk about wins. Oh, excellent, John. So we're going to get and document wins. In other words, we're going to baseline your security posture. We're going to document it. And then we're going to start getting wins. We're going to start making the wrongs right. We're going to start remediating and we're going to document them. And with this process, we're going to A, reduce our risk landscape, B, be defensible in case something does happen. Documentation is key. Jeremy, anything you wanted to add there? You want to move right on?
I wanted to say that, what you're saying about documenting wins is actually more important than people may realize, because you don't want to make this exercise just an exercise in buying insurance. So you don't your win isn't, yay, I've paid my premium. Your win is you identified, vulnerabilities and risks, and you've mitigated or closed them. And so that you actually do get a sense of accomplishment. You feel like you've made your business better, more accountable, less risky, and things like this. So don't diminish the fact that there are wins and they can be shared and they can help bolster that culture of we're all working together. Because as John will talk about later, this isn't just mechanics. This isn't just technology. There's several other letters in that acronym talking about people and how they're involved, talking about process and how you deal with things. So it is larger than just, do we have antivirus kind of thing. It is much more complicated than that. And there are people obviously to help you. And I'll let John keep talking about that.
Yeah, and something that's really important to me and important to us at Harbor, and something that I've had an angst with security offerings is the security resource gives you work to do instead of helping you complete the work. And we have a rounded solution at Harbor. So we're not going to only help you identify the risks. We're going to give you resources to help you remediate the risk. Right. And then, like Jeremy said, then we can check that win off. So our program, been very careful to put it together so that our clients aren't feeling, hey, I hired this security resource and they're just giving me a bunch of stuff to do. That's all it seems like, is every time they're in contact, it just puts more on my plate. We're going to take it off of your plate and we're going to make you safer. So that's the approach. So building the foundation, it's really key. One of the biggest mistakes I see with people building cybersecurity programs is they buy some tools and then they formulate their program around the tools. And tools are great. We're going to talk about some tools. We need tools. They're important. Tools get beat. It's just the bottom line. It's the radar detector, right? The good guys get ahead, the bad guys inch ahead, the good guys ahead. So we really have to start with the foundation, right? Before we build our fortress. And the foundation is policy. So let's understand from a business perspective, productivity, regulatory perspective, what is needed. And now let's build our security program around that. And let's get a firm foundation. And then from the foundation, we can identify and understand what tools that we would be using and what is proper and what can be most effective to protect us. Some of the policies right now that I just jotted down that they're really on the top of my mind is third party, right? We're all getting inundated with third party questionnaires and having to prove our posturing and having to answer all these scary questions from insurance, from our vendors, etc. So our program will help you with this. We want to take that working with you, take it off of your plate, be able to respond, and not only respond, but be accurate. Because what is happening is a trend right now that's going on is people are just, checking off the boxes. And then something happens and they're getting pinched on it. They're not getting away with it anymore. And now they're becoming accountable instead of defensible, right? So that foundation really helps you there in incident response. Incident response is key. If you see people that are being attacked and it gets blown out of proportion from a press perspective, from a reputation perspective, etc., they probably didn't have an incident response plan. And if they did, they probably didn't practice it or update it. It's really important because we're incident responders. So we go out and we help people when they are attacked. And if you don't have a plan, it's scary. You're gonna
John,
make
that's a good point about incident response as an example of a policy. It's not an example of a tool, and there are obviously people involved in an incident response, but there's a fair amount of planning, and there's testing, and there's policies and so forth. But you would probably say that one of the most important things for a company to start with, as far as building out their foundation, is an incident response plan, so they at least know who to call, because the incident response or the response could be more than just call the IT team. It could be call our PR team, call our
right.
lawyers, call the FBI, things like that. So that maybe that being the foundation about a response plan as a policy, and then start adding more policies, obviously, to prevent incidents and so forth, right?
100%, and it's something that's just crucial. And practice it. We have tabletop exercises or different ways to get involved. We do it with board level sometimes. We go with your board and talk to them about an incident, take them through so they can understand. And really, board is important, and it's something we're going to talk about here. They should play a role in security. But I'm going to move on to the next box, which is criminals don't sleep, but you need to. So 7 by 24 by 365 coverage is crucial. Attacks are happening at all different times, and it's just for an IT team or a security team, it's a challenge, right? So we want to assist you by being able to have an eye on you. 7 by 24 by 365, have analysts that are able to contain or understand or sandbox what is going on in your environment. We do things like machine learning and user analytics, so we understand patterns, right? That John logs in generally at a certain time from a certain area, and if we see anomalies or things that are different, we're going to check it out. And it's really important. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
Joe.
I was going to say, so one of your points here is that you may need outside help to keep an eye on things for 24/7, because it could crush you. It's not like a help desk request. Some of these incidents and attacks and events are happening automated with bots and all kinds of programs and things like that. So you may need to think outside of your team just logistically because of how many days of the year and vacations and things like that. You can't have your security staff on vacation. They need to work,
Right.
365 and a quarter days, include that leap year day.
Absolutely. And then you think about expertise and niches and 0 days, and it's so hard to keep up with. We can help you with that. We assign you a team. So you have a dedicated team. So it's not a call center model when there is an alarm. Somebody somewhere doesn't get just some random call and then have their screen pop. Your team gets involved with it. That works with you on a weekly or monthly basis for security. So really key. We're going to talk about locking our doors philosophically. And I'm going to tell you a quick story. I was sleeping, right? And I wake up and my wife is looking out the window. So I'm like, hey, what are you doing? And she's like,
Looking for Saint Nick.
yeah, she's like, come here, come here. So I'm like, I get out of bed and I go over to the window and I look out with her, and there's some crook in our neighborhood running up and down people's driveways, and they pull on a car door, it's locked. They go to the next car, they pull on the car door. If it's unlocked, they take all their stuff, right? So I want to think about this for a minute. When they went to the first car that was locked, they could have taken a brick and smashed the window and gone in and still taken their stuff, but they didn't. You know why? Bigger chance of getting caught, riskier, takes longer. We want to make sure our doors are locked. If it's a targeted attack, we're going to have, different types of offenses to combat that. But from a opportunistic attack, which are going rampant right now, people are scanning the world, right?
Yeah,
We
and it's
want our doors
automated. They're
locked.
not even, yeah, they're not even doing it. People think that sometimes they think that people are like interactively trying to log into your mail account. Those are programmed attacks that are happening by an automated thing, which are working much faster and much quicker than any human could do. And those are, the automated, drive by, just guessing password is the password and things like that. So those are, as you're saying, John, these are the very low hanging fruit, easy, just, lock your doors, just because for those automated drive-by ones, they're going to move on to the next one. So there's,
Absolutely.
not everything has to be a castle, but you do need to lock your door.
Right. This is about reducing our risk, reducing our landscape, reducing our exposure. So
So
that's
what did you do? Did you throw a brick through your window to scare them away, or did you call somebody?
I got my dog and we went out there and we did catch the criminal.
Oh,
So
excellent.
that is something I didn't. Okay. But the criminal was caught. Let me clarify that. And then I have two different philosophies that I work with in one. And it's interesting because they're not conflicting, they work together. Trust but verify, and then zero trust. Okay. I love zero trust, right? But I want to talk about trust but verify. And I want to talk about third party and employee oversight. Because what we're seeing is we're doing a better job of qualifying vendors and employees with background checks and documented RFPs and hopefully site visits and all these type of things. We're doing, from where I sit, we're doing a better job of vetting third parties and employees, but then we're letting them run wild. And what I mean by that is, I just said we're incident responders, right? So people get hit, they call us, we go out, we help them. All the time, what I'm seeing is the company or organization is paying employees or a third party to say patch them and assuming it's being done. And what I'm telling you is when we get out there, it's not. So how do you know what is promised and what is committed to is being done? What is the oversight? And when you think of a third party relationship, people are making mistakes by having the third party, the stakeholder in that relationship, be the oversight. So if I brought Jeremy in to Harbor and I put my name on the line and I brought him in and I believed in him and he started doing things that weren't great, I don't know how I would be as oversight because I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to lolook bad.
Yeah, a bit of a conflict of interest there. I can feel those waves of trust coming towards you, coming towards me, John. This
100%. We need some type of way to have a metrics, some type of measurement from a vendor management committee office or some way to measure them to get documentation that they're following through. Because
Yeah,
what
and
I'm seeing is it's
this
not.
is similar to what you were talking about early about those third-party vendor surveys and making sure that they're complying with the same standards you have. That could also potentially mean periodically testing and not asking someone to test themselves. When you hire auditors, they're never the same people who are your accountants. They're different, because it needs to be a separate set of eyes. Or it could be, as you mentioned, about internal employees too. You may need to continually test them to make sure that they remember the policies you started in several slides ago when you talked about, don't pick up USB sticks in the parking lot. Don't click on emails that say that your account balance needs to be updated. So please log in here, it's sort of phishing testing, things like that. So this is sort of, you can trust your employees, but you do need to verify that they're staying up to date and they're listening to you and that they read those emails. You need to verify that your third parties are staying up to date too, because they're a risk factor there as well. But as you said, John, it doesn't mean that you don't trust anybody, because then that's a very lonely world, right? Um, so
It's getting
you have
close.
to find that balance there, and I think part of your point was asking, potentially another party to do that verification, and this is where we talk about conflict of interest, where you might have an internal IT staff who's in charge of all the policies, but you may need somebody externally to test those policies and seeing their meeting. You can't ask somebody to test their own policy and get the same result as if you tested it with a third party or an outside party or whatever that may be. And that could be people in your company, or it could be outside consultants or whatever.
100%.
Yeah.
Okay. So from a real world perspective, this is what we're seeing. This is where we're at. Privacy. I almost wrote privacy, please. But what I wrote here, you can sell it, but you can't buy it back. What's happening is our information is being bought and sold at an astronomically alarming rate. When people sign up for accounts and the disclaimer is going to say, we're going to take your information and sell it when you download the free app, etc. So this is something that's rampant. And what we're finding is people are using work credentials for opening up for their fantasy football. They're using their work credentials. They've had so many passwords. They just use the same password so they remember it. This information is being sold, and on the dark web, you can buy it, see the clear text passwords. There's even pay for performance managed service providers on the dark web. You could submit your list, tell them what you would like, and when they get the actual data, you pay. That's where we're at. That's how easy it is. Privacy. If you get in your car and you have a tire pressure monitor, the information is being sold about your weight. So that's where we are from a privacy perspective. And I'm going to talk about a case that I'm working on right now, and it's digital murder. Okay. And this is straight up federal witness. Okay. This case, federal witness. These criminals have figured out that with a license, they can basically create birth certificates or birth certificate. They can create birth certificates, but death certificates on you. And if a death certificate is created on you, and it's very simple, that trumps any other form of identification you have. I don't care if you have your license and you pull out your social. If a death certificate is produced, it's a problem. So this was a federal case. A witness was going to testify, and the lawyer said, "Excuse me, I have an objection, Your Honor." And the
Your
honor
Honor,
said,
this man is dead. Essentially what they said, right?
"He's dead, and here's his death certificate." And I'm working with him to become alive right now. But that's where we're at. So TMI, we don't want to tell anybody anything. We want to keep it to ourselves. Ransomware and extortion is going absolutely crazy right this minute. I used to say, back up, make sure you're backed up and you're redundant and you're 3-2-1 and you test your backups and make sure you're patched and having it and you're going to be fine. You're going to be able to, and what really that means, you're going to be able to continue working, but you're not going to be fine because now the variant and what everyone is doing is they're taking your information and they're holding it hostage. They're saying, if you don't pay the ransom, forget productivity, forget working, we're going to leak your database out to Twitter, or we're going to go to every major news outlet 3 days from now, and we're going to release all this information that you don't care about your customer. And I'm in a couple of these right now, and they're scary because you don't want your information out there. They've already got your information. So ransomware is huge. They're targeting our people. What they're doing is they're going on LinkedIn, finding out the employees and targeting the employees. I was in Rochester 3 years ago, Rochester, New York, and we did an experiment at a bar. It was a fairly nice bar. We went in there. We gave people $500 cash to give up their work credentials. We had the computer right there, so we made sure it was legit, everything else. 3 people gave it to us. Got it right
Wow.
in.
What did they do with the $500? Did they buy somebody else's credentials with that?
Yeah, you know what I thought about? I probably could have done it for $100. That
So
was my thought after that.
So I mean, I want to bring this point home because this is sadly the scary part of the presentation this morning. Ransomware, it really used to be they encrypted all your data. If you didn't have good backups, you needed to pay. There are certainly towns and hospitals and folks who've paid the ransom to be able to decrypt whatever their files were that they needed. What you're saying and what you're seeing now is you're seeing a twist on that where they're not only doing that, but they're threatening to extort you publicly, whether they leak your company salaries, whether they leak the social security numbers of the corporate members, whether they tell all of your clients what everybody else is paying for their same thing, whether if you're a law firm and they expose your client data. I mean, these are business ending events, reputation wise and so forth. So now not only are we holding you hostage about whether you can get into your files, but we may just smear your name and so forth. And that's a pretty motivating reason to prevent these from happening. And as John talked about earlier, it's an escalation where they'll come up with new and awful ways to torture us and so forth. So it's really getting worse, not better. I think there's obviously more press around it, and there's more companies that are working to prevent these. But this has become something that you should have, but have to have. This whole cybersecurity plan is as important as having locks on the doors to the business and an alarm system on your warehouse and things like that. They're have to haves and so forth. So what's next after scaring us with ransomware and extortion? Talk about endpoint security a little bit and how that's been more relevant during the pandemic.
More relevant. And just before I'm done though on my little bit about the ransomware, so for years I was just seeing phishing. We were seeing 99% of the time it's phishing. The last 2 attacks in the last week that I've responded to were not phishing. One was third party. They had third party access. They forgot about it, and a third party got hacked. And the other was just an open port to the internet, just scanning. It was an open port to the internet. They scanned, they found it, they got in, they went east, west, north, south, and were able to get through their systems. Yeah, endpoint is huge, Jeremy. It's a big point. Something I wanted to put out here is a lot of our risk is now on the endpoint, right? We're giving people a lot of control to connect to Wi-Fi, and who knows who's using their computers and what networks they're on, etc. So really right now we're seeing a lot of emphasis on the endpoint. Do you have visibility? Are you able to contain? These type of things are really huge right now because containment, it's all important. There's not one part of a program that's not important, but if we see something, we have to be able to shut it down.
Let's expand a little bit, John, on what we mean by endpoint. We mean people's mobile phones, we mean their laptop, we mean the home computer that they own, that they use to get into the office.
Sure.
It means the Internet of Things, that weird camera you bought on Amazon made by somebody in another country that you plugged in that has a USB port, but maybe it has more. I don't really know. But that, it's not just the firewall and the router and internet security software. It's everything that connects. And you had pointed out that now, during the pandemic, we've spread that even thinner, farther away, with less control potentially. Like, not every company has issued everybody a company-owned encrypted laptop. Many of them would say, "Hey, just sit at your 7-year-old Mac at home, fire up our VPN and remote in," not fully considering the risk factor of that home user PC that's been sitting in the kitchen for 7 years that may have issues, and you've essentially opened a portal for them to bring that into the company. So that endpoint control is a growing concern as well, and you may not have as much control as you want, because someone say, well, I have to do my job, but you don't own my computer at home and my kid uses it on the weekends, so I'm not going to let you encrypt it or install something on it. So we get back to policy, cost, trying to mitigate that. But you can't tell people you can't use anything, because then they can't do their job. So this is a dynamic environment.
Yeah, it's about visibility. And right now, this is about visibility, what's going on, because we need to be able to understand that to have the proper actions. Internal fraud is something right now that's on the rise. It's the economy, it's COVID, it's et cetera. It's the person you trust. We just worked on a case right now where, again, it came down to financial oversight on a trusted employee that was there for 30 years. This lady everybody loved literally brought cookies to the office, et cetera. In the end, what we found after doing this forensic investigation with forensic accountants, et cetera, was her husband had a gambling habit. And when MGM opened, started gambling. So it's really what I want to get through here is most fraud. I won't say most fraud, 60% plus of fraud is still discovered with all the detection and everything we have by see something, say something. So in your organization, do you have a way for people to be able to anonymously report if they see something weird? That is something that's very inexpensive, costs almost zero, costs very little, and it's huge. I strongly urge you to have some way for if someone sees something that they don't think is right, for them to be able to anonymously report it in your organization. I mean, right now, criminals, hackers are literally putting people in the workforce just to take from us. I advise my clients, do you need your janitors to come in at night? Can they come in during the day? Can we do a workaround? Can we do a schedule? Do they really need that access at night when you're changing your password every 90 days and everything's all over the place and they have complete reigns of the kingdom? The last social engineering attack we did, it was around a janitorial service. We found out who they were using for a janitorial service, what time that janitorial service came. It came at 6 o'clock at night. We knocked off a badge. We showed up at noon, and we said that we're the supervisor with a janitorial service, and we need to make sure that they're following protocol, and we need to follow their route. Everything else got let right in. So this comes down to policy and overhead, et cetera. Anything else on this one, Jeremy?
No, but I want to take a pause here. I want to poll the audience, both to give us an idea of where they're coming from and also give you a chance to drink a water, so forth. So let me bring up a question that I'll ask folks to answer here. Just off the top of your head, of the things that you know of, let's know what you think the greatest threat. We've talked about phishing. That's where we send an email and we try to lure somebody into putting in their credentials or whatever, or whether you think ransomware or extortion, or whether what a denial of service attack, where they sort of attack your website so much that it doesn't work, or whether you think people are just guessing passwords and using password 123 or stuff like that. So it's pretty evenly, although I guess maybe our audience doesn't have a lot of services to the outside world. denial of service. But thanks for giving us that info as well.
Mailbox takeovers is my answer. Mailbox takeovers really, really freak me out. I just, because you can do all the training you want, you can hover over, and I'm sending it to you, but somebody's in my mailbox.
Yep,
Those
sending on
are,
behalf. Yeah.
and it leads right into this dark. I touched on the dark web. The bottom line is this: the credentials are out there. The FBI used to say, "Hey, let's change our passwords every 90 days." Now they're saying, get a service so you understand if that password has been exposed or there's been a breach and been released. You shouldn't change your password if you have a proper password unless it's been exposed. So there are services now where you can understand if the password is out there, if the password has been put in a breach, etc., and be able to monitor it. Because what we found is people have, I don't even remember the counts of passwords on the top of my head, but it's so many, it's becoming a mess. So we're almost reversing the trend on that. It's basically, let's watch it. Let's make sure it's safe, but let's not confuse the user even more than they're already confused. So it's something.
And the dark web, access to, that kind of information is something that we can help with. We can sort of do a dark web search against, your email addresses and see what's readily accessible, even without even trying, right? You're just readily accessible, and maybe identify some of the people whose accounts appear more often than others, and those are targets. Maybe they've been at the company a long time. Maybe their name and email address is on the website. Maybe they were a prolific LinkedIn user, or all of the various, they went to Target all the time, or whatever, all the sites that had been hacked in the past. And then give them some guidance, or give you some guidance to say, these are high risk users. They really need to use different passwords. I'm sorry, they can't use the same password on everything anymore. They need to put all that history behind them and so forth. And that's a helpful peek into the underworld, at least to see what's out there, because it's not just easy passwords. It's a password that you used 5 years ago on LinkedIn, or 10 years ago with Prodigy or whatever, and you're still using that password, but ages ago somebody hacked into there, got your email address, got your password. So now all they need to do is pump that into some engine, and they're hacking away at automated speeds to do that. So that's a good tool, and not something that is easily accessible, but you might need some help for that, which we can
Yeah,
provide.
I just want to explain that a little bit. So we can literally integrate with your AD, and we use a
Active Directory for the
Active
acronym buster.
Directory. Use a repository like SpyCloud, the biggest repository for breaches. Check against your domain. Understand if your password is out there or exposed in any prior breach, and then also real time. Any breach happens, your password and your domain is exposed. This will check in your domain if there's masking passwords, block the mailbox out, make the user change the password.
Right,
So
and it can be that
real time.
that vector for somebody, for the villain to arrive, can be one person's account. It
Yeah.
could be the intern's email address account, and that's the one person you didn't pay attention to. So you need to look at all of them. You need to have a good policy, you need to have a good testing, and you need to make sure of that. I mean, it's a hassle to change passwords, but it is fairly low hanging fruit. That's the unlocked door in the car that John and his wife looked out the window to see.
So I want to talk really quick about, I've touched on privacy, but GDPR is a European standard. And what GDPR basically says is you can go to a tech company. You could say, hey, Google, please show me all the information you have on John Flory. And they have to produce it. And then you could say, hey, Google, I opt out. I still want to be able to use Google, but anytime you see my name, anytime you see my picture, anytime you see anything to do with John Flory, delete it. The United States right now, if we want to use an application, we accept the terms. As simple as that. You want to use the app, you accept the terms. And when we look at the terms, they're not pretty. And my point here is California CCPA has done a decent job in trying to get their hands around privacy. But the reality is this: there's no nationwide standard. There's 50 class action lawsuits going right now in Chicago for people that appeared in a Facebook photo that didn't have Facebook. So it's a mess. So TMI. We're going to get to a national standard, and then things will be much better. For right now, just be very careful about the applications and about the terms you're accepting, because it really goes right into the dark web scan and everything being bought and sold and you being exposed. Okay. Jeremy?
Favorite part. So the reason this slide is in here is because we wanted to ask somebody who's a security expert, this young man here, what criteria he uses to build his cybersecurity plan. And jokes abound here. This is myself at roughly age 13. I obviously took horseback riding quite seriously enough to wear a three-piece green suit from the 1970s. I see some great reactions there too. I obviously did not go Lone Ranger. When expertise was needed, I hired it, and that's what you should do as well. I think it's funny to make fun of ourselves, and it's even more fun for John to make fun of me. He loves this picture too. But in all truthfulness, we're not the same people we were 10 years ago, or even however long ago this was. I won't give away my age. Things are different. We need to trust and verify. We need to plan. I definitely needed a haircut. I mean, wow, this is like right out of the monkeys here. It's pretty intense. But no, it's important to have a little fun with things. When you do internal training, when you talk to your employees, you can't just beat them over the head and scare them. You have to give them a win. You have to give them something to laugh about, and so forth. So this is our chance to laugh at ourselves too. I will get this off the screen as fast as I can, but I wanted to ask another poll question here. In seriousness, and then we'll come back to fun here. I wanted to see, because we've been talking for a little while, I wanted to see a little bit about, if you guys have a cybersecurity plan at all, or if it includes any of these. I think you just have to pick. Yeah, you can pick all of the above and so forth, but we're just getting an idea. I mean, I think that most of you who are attending this webinar have some semblance of cybersecurity, but there might be some folks who have none at all, and this is a bit of a wake-up call for you, so this is important to us too. And we take this information to help decide, topics for webinars and stuff like that, so this is good. Thanks a lot. Thanks for joining and making fun of me together.
Yeah, exactly. I want to get to a few questions. So when we do our follow-on workshops, we're going to dig deeper into subjects. So I brought out the offensive playbook though. So I just want to talk about these blocks real quick. We talked about culture, make it important to them, or they're going to be at a bar and they're going to take cash and they don't care. They're going to give away their work credentials. So we have to figure out together what makes them tick, what they care about, what they like, and then we're going to make a plan to help them with culture. Okay. Inventory. Do you know what you have? It's alarming that how many people I talk to and they don't. And it's, how do you secure, right? If you don't know what you have, if you look at the CIS top 20 critical controls, they're going to say control 1 is inventory. What do you have? Visibility is huge, because these criminals are getting in and they're so busy. Sometimes they just leave it there for months, or sometimes they do it on purpose, but we need to know if they're in there and we need to shut them down and get them out. Visibility.
That's an important one. Sorry to interrupt you, John, but
Yeah.
a lot of people don't realize that many of these attacks, like the ransomware attacks, they're not instant. They didn't get in on 4 o'clock and then encrypt you at 5 o'clock. Sometimes they could be in there for hundreds of days or months before they actually execute on it. So that's one of the benefits of here, is that we can find things in advance and prevent them as well. But it's you have to be keeping an eye on things to make sure you know that someone's planted a weed in your garden, so to speak.
100%. Let's build a strong foundation. Let's make sure we have that policy. If anything blows up, or you have a problem, or you have an auditor, you have to be able to produce that. If you produce that, it makes it so they are. It takes their guard down. You're in a better spot. We want to have layers, right? We talked about these tools get beat. So we got to be able to watch each other and be able to understand how the tools are working and then maximize them. We want to document the wins. That's what you have. That's what you have in your arsenal to show I'm doing due diligence. I'm defensible. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing because I'm finding risk. I'm baselining it. I'm documenting it. I'm reducing it. I'm documenting that, and then I'm repeating.
Good
And so
job, John. I'm going to buy
that's
you a
fine.
pony as a win then.
Thank you. Have a plan, right? We need to have a plan going in. Understand what your risk is. What's your risk? Where is it? How can you be affected? So that's one of the early steps on what are our risks? Who can be affected? What systems is affected? Where is our data, etc.? Have these metrics, these unbiased metrics from an oversight perspective to give us a clear view, not an emotional view of what's going on. And document. When people are breached, they don't remember anything. They didn't tell you anything. They don't remember anything. They have no idea what you're talking about. I live it. Document it. Write it down. Make sure it's documented. Anything else on this one, Jer?
No, we'll definitely dive much more into these blocks in our
Yeah.
later webinars because we can't keep you on the phone forever. So
All right. Now we're gonna. Before I get our questions, I want to talk really quickly about our offerings. This is not our full slate of offerings. These are some very, very important offerings that we have. We start with a security assessment. In a perfect world, which we do not live in, but if we were in a perfect world, we would start with a security assessment because then we would understand what you have, what policies do you have in place, what tools do you have in place, what regulatory or reporting responsibilities do you have, etc. Let's start with an assessment, and that gives us our baseline. This is where we have. This is where we're at, and just as importantly, this is what we have.
and a
Okay.
plan, it helps us plan for our next steps and so forth. So because you may not
Yeah.
know, you didn't know that there was this, that, or the other thing. So
Right.
important.
And this could, and there's so many different flavors from HIPAA to SOC 2,
Yeah.
etc. So we offer many types of security assessments and penetration testing also.
Let me talk
Internal,
about this one.
external. Yeah,
Yeah,
go.
let me talk about penetration testing. In the IT world, everyone thinks a penetration test is just some web scan that they're going to scan your network. It's obviously much, much more than that. There are obviously the mechanical penetration where we're, running probes on your firewall and making sure ports aren't open. Also, keep in mind that we may run testing internally behind the firewall. And then, as John had talked about, there are social ones as well with let's see if we can get into your data center by forging credentials or fooling somebody. That's a key aspect of folks about physical security. You may keep that server room door locked, but if I walk in with a fake Verizon badge and a butt set hanging off my belt, I could probably get into your server room to say I gotta cross wire a wire, and the office manager will happily unlock the door for me. So penetration takes a couple of different forms there, not just the techie web scan version.
You know what? Technically, we always do, but you don't need to even do a scan to do a penetration test. Penetration test is we break in. It doesn't mean we have to scan. We have to do so. We're getting in. However, a criminal might get in. We do a scan because that's the low hanging fruit. We do the scan. We know how to break in very easily, right? We're going to see where the holes are. So, and another thing about our pen test, which it gets down to our philosophy, we're going to help and work hand in hand and be an extension of your team. We do it in two phases. So we do the pen test. We get the results, we document it, and we go through the remediation. Then 60 days later, we do a retest, and on that retest is your final documentation. So it really gives us an opportunity to make sure that we have our ducks in a row. It gives us an opportunity to fix things, and document our risk, baseline it, reduce it, produce the report.
It's
So
like the
that
PSAT and the SAT, right?
yeah,
I'm sure there's some parents on the phone here.
Vulnerability management is scanning. It's really crucial to understand, is my vendor doing what they, we talked about vendor oversight and personnel oversight. Scanning is an awesome way to do it. You run a scan, you're going to know this patch didn't get applied. This is out of date version. This firmware needs to be replaced. Scanning needs to become, security is a verb. Okay. Security, don't have a one-time test today and think you're great tomorrow,
Yeah, it's got
because
to be periodic.
yeah, your risk is always changing. You hire people, you add technologies, etc. The vCISO and security engineer as a service is one of my favorite offerings that we provide because it's strategic and it's tactical. So we're not going to help you. We're not only going to help you from a vCISO role, in other words, be able to lay out the plan, to be able to document, to be able to lead strategically, but we're also going to help you tactically fix things. When
That's
the
our
scam
virtual chief information security officer,
Yes,
and your security engineer as a service. So like a hired gun to execute things that the chief information security officer suggested, developed, and so forth. So that expertise not only to come up with the policies, but potentially expertise to help you implement or potentially respond to an incident. So that's as well. Yeah.
absolutely. So it just drove me crazy that everybody sells vCISO services and just give you a bunch of work, and they don't. I want to give you help. So this is about getting the wins. We'll do the scam, but then we're going to fix it. And then we're
Yep.
going to document. Right. We talked about the SOC monitoring. We're going to have a whole segment on that. It's used. We do incident response and forensics. Unfortunately, very, very busy practice for us right now. So if you have a problem, if you have an incident, we'll be on it immediately. We engaged. I got called at 5:30 this morning. We were there by 6:15. So if you do have an incident, and we handle it properly, meaning that it's very tricky when you get into forensics. You have chain of custody and there's legalities, and you might end up at court, etc. So we have a lot of expertise about that. Again, we're going to have a segment just on that.
hmm Another
I think
reason to have a plan before you have an incident, so at least you'd know what to do and who to call, right? So,
absolutely.
in an ideal world, all of those people who've called you at 6 o'clock in the morning would have already had an incident response plan, one of the items of which says to call us. But in a lot of cases, you're coming in because they don't have one, and they're not only trying to respond to an incident, but also, figure out what to do next. Yeah.
100%. We already talked about dark web. It's really important. We talked about managed endpoint, governance. We do governance programs with organizations, and this is key because what we find is 70% of the risk is not in IT, yet it all falls on IT. So a governance program, A, helps us understand who owns our risk, where is our risk in the organization, and who owns it, and then what actions should that risk owner be taking? And what metrics do we need to come up to? And what are our leading indicators? And we put together a program which is accountability across the board. Because, like I said, right now it's all falling on IT. What we find when we really look at the risk in an organization, IT really owns about 30% of it. So we need more hands in here. We need more people helping. So that's what this is about, identifying that, putting a plan, and then monitoring and metrics again. Training programs, we have all kinds from certificate-based online trainings to in-person customized trainings to training groups of developers, etc. on security. So the training programs are very flexible. I recommend a mix. Online is great, but sometimes you might want to throw in a session where people can ask questions or what they care about or pertains to them. So we have all kinds of different programs there. Our programs are modular, they're customizable. We work with you. We have no agenda. We're not trying to sell a widget or a product. So we go in and we figure out where can we help? And then we give you the different suggestions. We have our own resources. We've been hiring, Harbor has done great. We brought on a lot of resources in the last since COVID. I mean, it's shocking. 4 people on my side. We brought in a new vice president of engineering, and so we're really growing and putting an emphasis on this. And we also have partners that are best in the world at what they do. So we talk to you and we figure out, hey, what's the plan? Who is the best for this? What's the best budget compared to what I'm getting out of it, safety, protection, etc. And we work with you and we do all that work on the back end to give you a solution. And they're modular; they don't look alike. Not most businesses, almost all businesses, these programs are a little bit different. And that's really all I have, Jeremy.
Okay, so I mean, we're coming up to the top of the hour here. I wanted to squeeze in a couple of Q&As here. Obviously, there's probably more than we have time to do, and we can certainly stay a little longer here, but I wanted to fire a couple other ones out here right away. I know, John, this is a one good to your heart here. Tell us what you think of password managers, things like 1Pass and LastPass. What's your opinion? And maybe what's the industry opinion of those two? You have some thoughts on that?
Yeah, they're important. There's something that's so confusing now, and there's so much going on, and the passwords, are a huge problem for us. They're important. They get hacked though.
Yeah, I mean, and nothing is
And-
perfect, right? But
right.
it's a measure of risk mitigation. Obviously, they're far better than storing them in an Outlook contact
No
or in a
doubt.
tiny little piece of paper like my father-in-law used to do in his wallet.
Right.
But they're not invincible. Just keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, yeah. If you want
Um,
to be invincible, I suggest a bulletproof, fireproof safe, yeah, and
yeah,
a
just
piece of
carry
paper
the
to
safe around
put
with
in
you.
that
It's fine.
safe and
Yeah.
lock that safe. Yeah. Next
Here's
one.
my another one. I'll take this one too. Is why isn't my antivirus and my firewall enough? I mean, why do I need all this fancy cybersecurity planning and so forth? And I can sort of say there are far more holes than the firewall and antivirus. Email, social engineering, people calling in and asking for stuff. Leaving or handing out USB sticks with novelty team logos on them and malware installed. Um, the incident or the issue I talked about earlier about people working from remote on machines that are not company owned or managed and having those potentially vectors. This is significantly different than others, and so you need policies. You need more than just tools. It's not just about tools and so forth. So that's important as well.
Yeah, they're
Um,
attacking our people. They're attacking our people. It's just a
yeah.
fact.
Another one is how does, and I'll let John, you take this one here, is how is this whole cybersecurity planning and mitigation and so forth relevant to people who've moved a lot of their IT resources to the cloud? Are they no longer an issue with the cloud, or are they more of an issue? What's your thoughts there?
Oh man. Okay, so we're gonna have a session on cloud. Yeah, cloud. A couple things to think about cloud. First thing I want you to think about when it comes to cloud is if you collect the data, you own that data. Okay, I don't care where it is until deletion. So when it comes to data, we want to use the principle minimization and deletion. Delete it as quick as you can and take as little bit of it as you can. Okay, so we're going to use those principles. When it comes to cloud, you're taking your blinky lights out of your closet and you're putting them somewhere else. We need to know where they are. We need to know where it's being stored. We need to know, is our data being sold? Cloud comes down to the contract. Cloud makes the contract extremely important. We have to understand our SLAs. We have to understand what they're doing with our data. We need to understand what controls they have in place to protect us. So we're doing our due diligence to protect the data. Cloud is an awesome option. From an availability perspective and security, you can't beat it, right? So there's so many benefits. And if it's done right with the proper controls and it's monitored like anything else, it still needs to be monitored. Great, great. It's a
Yep,
great option.
that's
Let's
good.
go one more, Jeremy, and then we're done.
Sure. So I'm going to do one of my favorites ones here. As the IT person or IT director, will bringing in a consultant for cybersecurity planning end up making me look bad? And, and I'll take some of this. I'll let you finish it up as well. As I would say, no, the opposite. I think that um, people who are not in IT, they understand that it's a detailed, multi-layered, multifaceted, field, and there's a lot of knobs and switches. And I think raising your hand and being open about it and not defensive about it will only make you look smarter, better. And if you're part of the team who brings up the importance of it, it's obvious to company ownership and management that you care about the company, to suggest this, and that you want to sort of move the ship forward here. So I don't see it as a negative. I see that if you approach it in a non-defensive manner, that it will only help. It will only help you, help your company. It'll help your career, everything. So don't look at it as a vulnerability assessment on you as an IT manager or technician, whatever that may be. I don't know if you have any other thoughts on that one, John.
No, we're going to work with you to get the wins. You're right on.
Yeah,
Just like I
we'll
said,
generate some wins for you. You will look better. Yeah,
yeah,
and
the
everyone will be
two-phase
better.
pen test, right? The
It may,
way we do the pen test, the way we do the get the wins with the security engineer is just pointing out the problems, right? So all those type of things. We don't want to leave you or make you late. We'll get back to you individually with the questions. I think there's like 32 questions. So there's a lot of questions. I love it, and I can't wait for our next one, which is on social engineering. So the next one, we're going to be talking about specific tactics that are being done and how people are breaking in and what they're doing. It's really a great one because they're real stories and they're wild. You're going to be like, man, what goes on? So thank
so
you
now
very
it's
much.
time. Yeah, now it's time to ride off into the sunset in your green 3-piece suit, and we will see you next time. Thanks,
All right.
everybody.
Thanks. Appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Good one.